But you have a fascinating
I have something interesting as
find today.
Yeah, well, if you've been following me at all for any amount of time, I love to write. I've written like a lot of historical books. I wrote a book about Jesus.
This is the shameless plug right here. Yeah.
I didn't say the title or my website, which you could Google. I didn't give any of that away. But no, I love to write and I love to research. And one thing I started to do this past year was to write a fictional book. But based in some experiences that I've been through and kind of using my characters to tell a story. And I even took an online course on how to become a better fiction writer, because it's a great genre. You can tell a lot of story using fiction, but it's based on truths.
Okay,
and it got me thinking and remembering back to my early days in the church as a believer in the mid to late 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
And I remember there were a lot of books that were huge back then. And they actually had a massive effect on the church. Even if you weren't in church, you may have heard of some of these books that really impacted the way people saw God.
Okay.
And then I remember even as a young believer, 17, 18 years old, going, this is kind of dangerous, because what's happening is that these authors are just writing characters. And people maybe who don't know their Bibles that well, they're taking these books as gospel. And they're using it as a basis for what they believe. And then I remember as a young Christian having to say, no, that's actually not in the Bible. No, it's in the book. I know, but that's just the book.
Yeah.
This is the book by which all our standards should be.
Yeah.
So I found this article that talked about, it says 12 fictional books or fiction books that will shape your theology. Now, I may not want to talk about every single book that's in here, but I think in general, do you think that's true, that people maybe sometimes read a book and they take it as gospel?
Yeah, I'm not a big fiction reader per se, but I remember early on in my faith, one of the series of books was Left Behind, was big. And I became a Christian later on. I was in university when I became a Christian. So that was a big book that came out, and a series of books. And I did, now that you think, you're talking about it, yeah, I think some people would loosely base on it, but I don't want that to seem as if we're bashing the book. I think what you're saying is we have to know our Bible well to be able to differentiate the two.
Well, yeah,
right?
take the book as what it is. It's a novel.
Right.
Hey, it's a great story. It flows well. You can take it as that. But I want to make sure that people aren't reading like fictional books and going, oh, this is how God works. I remember the
lines blur after a while.
Yeah, they can. I mean, remember the whole, what was that big book about Jesus was married and to Mary Magdalene had kids?
Oh, yes.
The Da Vinci Code. I mean,
Okay.
hey, it might be a really well-written book. I don't know. Yeah. But what happened was, because it was presented so well and history was mixed in, people took it as actual fact. Oh, my goodness, Jesus was married. He didn't die on the cross. What's going on? And some people actually lost their faith because of a book like that. I'm not speaking ill of that book. I'm just saying in general. Yeah. I remember a book called Piercing the Darkness, and it was a book about spiritual warfare. And I mean, he describes these demons with these, really long claws and, like foaming at the mouth and all this, like, wow, like Hollywood kind of stuff. But I can't find a single reference in the Bible, to that. But more than that, I remember being stuff like, they would get out in the morning and their car wouldn't start.
Yeah.
So then what was happening, he was superimposing in the spirituals, there was demons holding the fan belt back. And because enough people in the church weren't praying, the belt wouldn't turn over. And when they began to pray, it released angels, and angels would chop off the heads of the demons. And then and I'm like going, whoa, hang on a second. Yeah. And to this day, Maggie, to this day, I know people, when they pray, that's the image they have in their mind. I mean, you have some other books, The Shack.
Yeah.
The Shack was a book, again, a fictional book. It talks about God in an extraordinary way, and people took that as theology. Oh, the whole Lord of the Rings series. C.S. Lewis did the Screw Tape Letters, the Chronicles of Narnia, all kinds of like really great books. But you gotta watch that you know the Word of God. And in fact, in 1 John chapter 4, verse 1, it says, test the spirits. Yeah. And everything you do, always make sure you test the spirits so that you will know that this is the truth by which you set the standard of your life.
Good challenge for us,
that's
Pastor
my rant
Joe.
for today.